Hello and welcome back. My name is Zach, and on this channel it's mostly science fiction and fantasy book reviews, but I do this segment now every week to talk about not just what I read this past week, but also what I watched, because I do consume content outside of books as a well-rounded person. So this week, what I am reading, what's the weekly reading update is, yes, I finished Cradle Book 9 Bloodline, and it was great. It was amazing to finally be back in the world of Cradle in the next iteration. And yeah, so after the Uncrowned King tournament, which is the past two books, and this one was sort of the homecoming book, so not to be too spoilery and talk a little bit general, but this is book 9, so yes, the series has been going on for a while. Lyndon and his companions, Yaren, Ethan, they've been on a journey. They just finished the Uncrowned King tournament, and now the threat has returned to Sacred Valley. So this was a really, really great book. I can't wait to do a slightly longer review about it, but I love this return to the starter village, the starter town, if you're like in a role-playing game. So the main character, the cast, the party returns to their village, and yeah, this looming threat of the Wandering Titan is on the horizon, and we're also seeing a convergence of some of the other storylines. So Surreal's Marble, that's from the very first novel, so there's the hints of the larger kind of cosmic scale of things starting to play a bigger role. And yeah, the world just keeps expanding. The power levels, of course, keep expanding with our current Lyndon, who is now getting pretty OP, but some interesting plot devices to kind of level the playing field in Sacred Valley that were hinted at in previous books. But yeah, really enjoying Cradle, and after a long break, really excited to be back in the world of Cradle. So I finished that up, and then yes, started my next book, which was a library book that I had on hold for a while, and it came through, and that is another book that I just absolutely can't wait to talk about because I'm currently reading it. Today I'm about 62-ish% done with it, and that is China Miéville's Perdido Street Station. And this is a book that is my current like mood / genre that I'm into, which is a little more mysterious and world building, like Shadow of the Torture, like Tainted Cup, where the world you just get lost into. So there's a plot, but it's also just a really rich world. And yeah, Miéville in this novel, Perdido Street Station, it is crazy. So if you've read it, or if you've read other work by China Miéville, you know that he's just a very imaginative writer. So this is my second Miéville book after reading the Book of Elsewhere, which I picked up on the strength of Miéville's name as a imaginative science fiction writer, but also that was the book that he wrote in partnership with Keanu Reeves about his character Berserker. So that was a really interesting book, but with kind of a little superhero-ish and the Keanu Reeves, because it's from a comic, influence playing in that world of the Berserker world. But this one, Perdido Street Station, yeah, it's really hard to describe without getting too spoilers, so I want to talk about it when I finish it. But it's a book that took me a while to get into because you're just dropped in this world, and there's no kind of like an assistant point of view where maybe an outsider or an apprentice that's learning the ropes and you have someone explaining things. No, you're just dropped into the city, and yeah, you're in this fantastical world with creatures of names that you don't really understand at first, and I was basically just swimming around in this world for the first about hour or so of the audiobook. It took a decent number of chapters, but once I was in it, I was completely enthralled. I was lost in the world. Once that world, this alien mysterious world, becomes normal, yeah, the writing, the descriptions, the plot is just great. It's science fiction. It's fantastical. The main character is a scientist, so there's definitely science aspects of it, but it's on the fantastical realm as well. So really, really loving and enjoying Perdido Street Station. So that's my current read at the moment. Just one book, trying to finish this up because it's a library loan, so before it's due. And now to talk about what I really want to talk about as well, even though, yes, I want to talk about Perdido Street Station because I'm already theorizing of what's going on with the current crisis that they're dealing with. But what I watched this week was some pretty great cinema. A lot of things that we did watch were great, where we kind of explored our normal genre of science fiction and fantasy that we watch on weekends. But we did kick that off with watching Neja 2, the movie out of China, the sequel to Neja 1, the first one. It kind of expands on the world of Neja and the characters and that aspect of Chinese mythology. So my wife and son both loved it. We, as a family, loved it. We watched the first one together. We watched the second one together on Friday and had a blast. It does everything the first one did, but better. It expands the world. To me, like the first, maybe third, maybe half of the movie kind of plays into the tone of the first movie, where it is a little more family oriented. If you see any of the posters of Neja 1 or 2, the characters are drawn in kind of that cute style, so it is kind of more family friendly. But definitely in this one in particular, in the sequel, around maybe the second half or slightly before, things really kick into high gear. There's definitely some adult themes, and as has been covered in every review that was talking about when this first hit theaters in the States, is the visuals are breathtaking. I can see why it did, I think, $2 billion or in China. It's a gorgeous film, really great animation styles, top tier, on par with anything that is coming out of Hollywood in America. Yeah, Neja 2 was a delight to watch. The plot moved very fast, even though it's about 2.5 hours. It's a great story, a story I wasn't super familiar with, even though I'm fairly well versed in most of the bigger Chinese mythology stories like Journey to the West, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, stuff like that. The Neja story hasn't been adapted too much in kind of popular media until the first film came out. Then there's a bunch of clones, of course, in the Neja storyline, and now Neja 2 was great. It was really fun. And for someone like me who's also slowly getting into the Donghua, the Chinese animation scene of immortal cultivators, a genre that I also enjoy, having read I Shall Seal the Heavens years ago, and now currently watching Renegade Immortal and Tales of Herding Gods. There's definitely kind of callbacks to the general cultivation world, which is sort of like Cradle because it's also progression fantasy, but it's the cultivation world where there's immortals and they're getting stronger. So in Neja 2, they go to the like the palace of the immortals, and you see the clan. So a lot of similarities. So if you're familiar with cultivation stories like Renegade Immortal or some of the other Donghua 3D animations that are available, it's a lot of those beats as part of the story. But of course, the main focus is on Aobing and Neja, the two like complementary fire and water characters. Not to spoil too much, but they continue their friendship from the first one. Some things happen. It's just great. Don't want to spoil it, but it is definitely something I highly recommend you watch. That anyone watching this that has interest in fantasy or animation should definitely check out Neja 2. It was great time. And then on Saturday this is when we got stuck and we couldn't find any of our normal kind of like action-y movies, or international cinema is what we watch a lot. So we were scrolling through what's available, and we end up watching first we watched Materialists, which then maybe there is a crossover if you like comic books, because the story with everyone doing comics nowadays, it's Madam Web in a love triangle with Mr. Fantastic and Captain America. So it was actors you're familiar with. So 3 big name actors, even though maybe Dakota Johnson isn't super big name unless you watch 50 Shades of Grey and other romantic comedies she's been in. But yeah, Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal, 2 huge names if you're watching Marvel. And Pedro Pascal is just in everything. He's in Last of Us. He's in this. And then, of course, he's in Fantastic Four. So it was a movie that I wanted to see because the director, Celine Song, she did Past Lives, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a very interesting take on like a what if scenario about the title about past lives, of what could have been for these 2 characters as they kind of cross paths later in life, and they sort of reminisce about what could have been should their lives have gone in a different direction. And here in Materialists, it's sort of a romantic comedy, but not really. It's definitely like playing on the beats of romantic comedy, because again, stereotypically it's a love triangle that's like classic romantic comedy kind of tropes, where the main character, the heroine, has to decide between the rich guy and the poor guy. It's set up like that, but it sort of subverts that expectation a little bit, because as the weird opening kind of lays out, it's also a the opening is with these cavemen on the first marriage in the world sort of thing, and it's a lot about marriage and what it means to be a materialist, as the character constantly says throughout the film that marriage is a transaction, it's a business proposal, there's math to it. So it's definitely like a jaded sort of look at marriage and relationships, or at least that's the character. I mean, I guess by extension, the writer director wants you to see that how this can be transactional, or how some people can view it as transactional, but she throws that in there that love has to be part of it. So there is an element of love kind of redeeming things that because our main character is a matchmaker, so it was complex, not like leaning in too far to the romantic comedy tropes, but I actually enjoyed my time a lot to it. Maybe it was the setting, it's that A24 aesthetic, it's set in New York. I like the characters, even though Pedro Pascal's character was a little, I couldn't really see why this, private equity super wealthy guy, that he likes Dakota Johnson's character because of who she is as a person. So I guess that's a little, even she says the math doesn't work out, why do you like me? And then she just dumps him for the Chris Evans for Captain America because of their past. And so the plot doesn't maybe hold up to exact scrutiny, but it was a decent time. I felt the vibes. I enjoyed my time in this world of New York City, of these socialites flowing from the low side to the high life, and Madam Webb's character navigating in between both of them. So it was interesting. It was still actually surprised me with a decent watch. And then another film that we watched on Saturday, our second film of the day, was, again, we couldn't find a decent a art house or action film to watch, but we ended up watching, thanks to Netflix, Happy Gilmore 2, starring Adam Sandler, which is, of course, obviously the continuation of Happy Gilmore 1, which I hadn't seen, of course, forever. I barely recommend it, but this isn't, even though we watched Nejad 2, which does fill in the backstory, yes, Happy Gilmore 2 does kind of do a few callbacks to the major plot points. Not that the major plot points are that much, but that, yes, Happy is a former hockey player turned golf star, and then he turns into the bad boy of golf. But in this film, the setup tragically is that his wife dies, and then he must get back his glory in order to make the money to send his daughter to dance school. I think that was the main plot, but here it's just for the jokes, for the slapstick humor that you expect from kind of an old school throwback Adam Sandler movie. This is trying to kind of, I guess, recreate the magic of Happy Gilmore with that sort of humor. It's not complex, funny humor, but it's that Happy Gilmore style, a little toilet-ish humor, but it's on Netflix. It's free. You probably already have a subscription, and it was an okay time for just that kind of big budget, big name, lots of cameos, comedy film, lighthearted comedy film. And then on Sunday, we did finally find something sci-fi fantasy. We were chatting, my wife and I, about an interest of both of us, which is artificial intelligence, and we were talking about sci-fi books and how predictions come to the future, like what sci-fi writers wrote about in the past, and then how it's a lot of these things have come to pass in the present, especially in the realm of artificial intelligence. And that's when we got to talking about predictive crime. Notably, we were watching a little bit a while back, Psychopaths, the anime, which is about pre-crime and determining if a criminal is going to commit a crime in the future. And then, of course, we thought, hey, yes, that is the Philip K. Dick novel that was adapted, the Minority Report, with Tom Cruise. So we watched Minority Report with Tom Cruise on Sunday, and I guess, yes, it's a super old movie. It's been around. It's almost 20 years old now, so can't really spoil it. But yes, it's about pre-crime. It's about these precogs, these precognitive individuals. They can see the crime happening through kind of emotions, through a vision. And then with technology that we envisioned in the early 2000s, they're able to capture it. And yeah, the Tom Cruise using his like touch gloves to like touch screen. So it's like a touch screen device, but he's scrolling through the timeline of the memories to try and figure out where the murder is happening. Of course, now I guess, like, does this hold up? Some of the predictions definitely hold up. This is definitely something that's currently happening, AI predicting crime. But of course, the way they kind of go about it is very early 2000s old school, because they're kind of, they don't have GPS or pattern matching for the backgrounds of images. They're kind of relying on Tom Cruise's detective skills to say, oh, that's a house from this neighborhood. There's only that many neighborhoods, so let's find it. So it's not like an all-seeing AI, because it's using, I guess, the precog. It's not really an algorithm doing it. It's a person is precognition, like Dune. They're having prescient visions. So it is sort of related to AI, even though AI is the one doing the predicting now. But I guess the sliver is there as far as what could happen in the future, pre-crime and preventing crimes before they happen. Here, based on a predictive model of these humans, but obviously now based on machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques. So still a fun film, even though, yes, the far future, even though it has flying cars, it's, of course, a film filmed in the early 2000s. So like the houses look normal. Everything still looks run down, even though there are the scenes when, they go all out with the CGI and Tom Cruise is flying on the highways and climbing on these futuristic cars and then walking into rundown houses. So a mix of like high tech and low tech as far as filming, but it was a fun, entertaining film, and definitely worth checking out if you've never seen Minority Report. It's a lot of fun. It's a big budget Tom Cruise film. So in addition to that, the other media piece that's related to science fiction and fantasy, not a movie, but we finally finished the last couple episodes. I think we've watched 4 episodes this weekend of the Ironheart series on Disney Plus. And this is talking about the downfall of Marvel lately. Not so great. It wasn't horrible by any means. It was interesting. But it's one of those things where, yes, I've heard the critiques and I agree with some of them that why is Marvel making so many series about these kind of B-list titles and characters that no one read in the first place? I know they're kind of more, I guess, film friendly. They don't have crazy special effect powers, so it's easier to make something for like the ground level heroes like Echo. She doesn't really, she's not flying around doing psionic blasts like an X-Men would do. She's just being like slightly enhanced human skills, kind of like Daredevil. He's not doing crazy power up moves like an anime. He's just doing fighting. He's using his enhanced senses, and similar to Ironheart, a lot of the the miniseries takes place with her without her armor. Of course, she only has the armor in select parts, but there were, I guess, surprised me enough that they did use the armor in a decent number of scenes, which of course is where the high budget and cost come in when she's finally using her armor. But they play like a trick where the AI happens to look like a human, so no, they don't need to do extensive scenes using this holographic technology. They can just have the human actor play the AI that looks like a human, so they can get around with some of the special effects budget that way. And all in all, it was maybe why I'm sort of negative on it is the ending, is because it ends sort of on a cliffhanger, even though, yes, it's only 6 episodes, but it feels like it's setting up for, I guess, Ironheart 2, or it's kind of playing into, I guess, Secret Wars, because it sets up Riri having a mix of technology with her Ironheart armor, but also blending in magic, which is, of course, like a setup like Doctor Doom, who is the master of technology and magic in the Marvel Universe. So it's sort of setting up a Doctor Doom-ish equivalent, but on the hero side, as she, yes, it's a spoiler, but yes, as she confronts Mephisto in the finale, in the final episode, in the final scene, is she starts seemingly to ally herself with Mephisto to gain more powers. So I don't know if this is like a very obvious lead into a Doctor Doom kind of equivalent or rival that we'll see again in Secret Wars whenever Avengers Secret Wars finally comes out. But yeah, it was just a little bit unsatisfying, the ending, because the villain is sort of defeated, but then we're of course shown the larger motivation, the tragic backstory of the villain, of course, when Ezekiel Stane is defeated, and then the Hood is sort of defeated, but then we're shown Mephisto as the larger, of course, villain behind it all. But we don't get that Marvel resolution, which is very similar to that, where the first villain turned out to be not the main villain, but then there's a larger villain always that the hero must overcome, but we don't overcome it yet. It sort of ends on that cliffhanger, so it doesn't finish out the story arc of defeating the second real villain of the series that we always find out that isn't the first villain. So it was okay. It was definitely a decent watch, worth watching. Only 6 episodes, so it's not super long, doesn't overstay its welcome. So that's what we've been watching this past weekend. The couple movies, one miniseries that we finally finished, and our current roster of anime of the season, but maybe that'll save time for another review once it's a little more. But so far, so good. Sakamoto Days, Dan, and Kaiju number 8 are all pretty good this summer season, with all their season 2s or part 2s going on right now. Kaiju number 8 is probably the standout. Dan, a little less so season 2, but still a lot of fun. So thanks for watching this weekly vlog yap session where I catch up on what I'm reading, and can't wait to talk about Perdido Street Station and what I recently watched. And I hope you enjoyed those little mini reviews of the past couple of movies I watched this weekend. So thanks for watching and have a great day.